Of course, I'm still repping the Miami Heat today. Tough one. I've been spoiled with game ones. The Heat have won all the game ones heading into last night in Denver. And, I know that Miami tried to make it interesting late. They knocked down some threes, but overall looked way too easy for the Nuggets as they beat the Heat on their home floor 104-93 last night to take the 1-0 series lead. Our next guest, you know him, you love him. He is in Denver. Ethan Skolnick is with
I
us.
don't know about that second part, Donno. What is that?
you know him.
You know him. Just, you know him, ...
So, Ethan, one thing, I was not up late enough to see the post-game stuff, right?
Yeah.
What were your big takeaways on Spo and the players that spoke after that loss?
Yeah, they brought 4 of them into the media room. So after Spo, Bam. Well, first it was Jimmy and Gabe, and then Bam and Haywood. I think, well, a couple of things. I think it was good that Jimmy recognized what one of the problems was last night was that he just simply wasn't as aggressive as he needed to be. And it was really more surveying Jimmy more so than attacking Jimmy. It sort of felt like he was getting a read on the series. And the thing about Jimmy is that he doesn't really vocalize this, but he kind of looks at a series in totality when he gets into it. It's not just about that one game. So there is a feeling out process for him. In the previous 3 series and during the feeling out process, they got to win in that game 1, and this time it didn't happen. So I thought the fact that Jimmy took certain responsibility for that was good. Gabe didn't really offer a lot. Haywood obviously is just a really good story at this point. I think if you look at positives from last night, obviously Bam is one. Yeah. But I have a feeling, and in talking to some of the Denver writers too, that a little bit of that is by design on Denver's part. That it's great that Bam took advantage of it, but I think they're okay with Bam getting his. I think in this case, it's really sort of the opposite of what we've seen in previous series, where it's really more their concern is sort of about Jimmy and the role guys. And if you look at what they did to Caleb last night, I think that's instructive because you could tell from the very beginning of the game this was not as good a matchup for him. It's not about size, it's about length. And it's also about the way that they kind of crowded him. And so there's going to need to be some counters because one of the things that happened in the last couple of rounds is they become much more reliant on Caleb than they used to be.
Yeah.
And so now before if it was he had an off game, whatever, he's a role guy, but now he's a core guy and he definitely was a focus for Denver. So I thought that was a concern. I'm not as concerned about all the missed threes. They got the looks. Strus got the looks. It does lead into an interesting conversation with Tyler potentially coming back here and how you play that out. But it wasn't just Max that was bad last. I mean, Duncan had 2 really clean looks and didn't even hit the backboard. It seemed like so they were just off. I don't know if it was altitude. I don't know if it was nerves from being in the NBA Finals. It's a little bit different. Like even the role guys. First thing, last time the NBA Finals was in a bubble, and it is a different atmosphere. There's no question, even from the conference finals. And the last time was in the bubble, and Gabe didn't play, and he was pretty good last night. But Duncan had a role. But again, it's not quite the same thing. And Max wasn't on the team at that stage. Neither was Caleb. So I do think some of that, may have been nerves. Some of it could have been adjusting to the altitude. I think I think the offense will be okay. How the hell they're going to stop Denver is another question entirely, Alex. I don't know. They're a machine right now, and they're a totally different team than what they've seen so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the dynamic duo of Jokic and Murray was better than advertised. I mean, they each had 26 and 10. That hadn't been done since Michael and Scotty together in a finals game back in 1993. So they were on full. For a second, I thought you were drinking Jack Daniels right out of the bottle. That's what.
This is my off day, but I will say I can't tell you if JD's in here. It's just pure leaf. I'm going to the Coors factory today, though. Does that count?
Not really. I mean, depends on how many free samples you take in.
Yeah, well, they do give you the free samples there, so you'll see me on Sunday night. That's about how this is going to work out.
Oh my God, yeah. So as far as that duo, Jokic and Murray, it's like I know, and thankfully every game is kind of a different series in itself, and I know that's the way the Heat have to approach it. Fans don't always see it that way because I'm watching that last night. I'm like, how in the heck are we ever going to stop these guys? Like it kind of feels hopeless when you see the way that they were rolling. So are there any adjustments for the Heat to make?
Well, I think there are, and I think some of them will be personnel, and some will be scheme. And Eric said it last night. This isn't about scheme; it's about playing harder. They were not on point defensively to start the game, so that's part of it. So some of it was Denver, but some of it was them. Um, you are not. I mean, look. Part of what's happening here is there's a little bit of a culture shock because not enough people have seen the Nuggets this year, and that's the national media's fault. But I mean, Heat fans are not. And the two games that Miami played Denver, almost nobody played on either of these two teams. I mean, so there was nothing to draw from those games. The only thing to draw from Denver is I've never actually seen a win here. In 11 times I've been to that building. It just seems like one reason or another Miami can't get out of its own way, no matter what the personnel group is. I don't think it's scheme. I mean, he used zone. He's soft switching. You can try a whole bunch of other things. They're going to need to play with. He's right about that. They're going to need to play with force in this series because I do think Denver is a little bit of a finesse team, and I do think I know they talked about the physicality, but I think in some ways they are a little bit of a finesse team that you can get up in them and affect them. That's the way you have to play Murray. And Haywood Highsmith said after the game last night, I think I'm going to be on him a lot this series. So do I. They're going to have to throw 3 or 4 different bodies at him and be physical with him because I don't think that the Heat fan who sort of casually follows the other teams but even follows the Heat intimately really realizes how good Jamal Murray is. And to me, he's been a top 5 underrated guy in the league. And some of it was the injury, some of it's playing in Denver. But he doesn't get the hype of the other Kentucky guards, even though he was a top 5 pick. So they're going to have to be physical with him because Jokic, I don't think there's a whole lot they can do to affect him. I think that the key to this thing is getting Murray to be less efficient than he's been last night or throughout the course of the playoffs.
You teased this a couple minutes ago. Tyler Herro, game 2, game 3. When do you expect we could see him, and how does Spo implement him at this stage?
Well, we had heard that he was ahead of schedule physically for a little while, and it was kind of a question of his comfort level playing with it. Is his shooting hand? So that is, something that he's going to have to adjust to. So, and if he's not 100%, shooter feels something a little bit different, then there's a problem. So I don't know what can be counted on from him. I will say that, we've heard consistently around game 3. I know Haynes reported that. That's accurate from everything that I've heard, but that he could be moved up a little bit. I don't know that throwing a guy who hasn't played. When did he play? It was like it's 5-6 weeks at this point, right?
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out yesterday. How exactly how long it was game 1. So whenever I think it was about 6 weeks ago. Yeah,
it's about 5-6 weeks ago. So I mean, throwing a guy who hasn't played an NBA game into a game 2 finals in altitude on the road. If you're going to play him, you've got to limit his minutes. I think their preference was to try to get a split here. Maybe they steal game 1 and then come home and say you win game 1, you lose game 2, you come home, you put Tyler in this, not the starting lineup. So I want to get to that in a second, but you play Tyler off the bench, at home. This is a little bit more challenging in terms of him kind of integrating back. But I hear it's possible. I did hear it was possible last night. Greg Sylvander's heard it's possible. Wow. So they could do it. If they do it, I mean, one way to do it is you could give him the minutes of either Strus or Robinson, even if he's coming off the bench. And it's looking more like you might give him Max's minutes. And if that's the case, do you start Duncan and get him on the floor with Bam early? And then Tyler kind of takes what the previous Duncan minutes were with maybe a little bit of an uptick with Max in reserve. I think the one thing you'll see less of if Tyler plays is you'll see less of the Lowry-Vincent lineups. Those have hit the wall a little bit, and last night it was not great, even though I thought both guys played pretty well. So you could see him take those minutes, some of those minutes. So I think Eric can carve out 10 to 15 minutes for him somewhere, but it's not going to be as a starter. I mean, it would be insane to do as a starter. You can't. I mean, you can't. It's very reminiscent. I think we talked about this before the series of Stan Van Gundy, throwing taking Ray for Alston out and throwing Jameer Nelson back in when he wasn't really ready in 2009. I don't think there's any way Spo would start Tyler. I just don't.
Ethan Skolnick is with us. He's out in Denver covering the NBA Finals. So this is, I guess, kind of a tough question to ask because people are going to think I don't have any guts here. Because I think we all know what an NBA championship would mean for this team, the underdog story of being an 8 seed to get to this point. But Ethan, if they don't win, how are you going to look back on this year? And will this accomplishment be remembered by South Floridians, even if they don't get the job done?
Yes, I think so. I look, Heat fans are a very high level of spoiled. We know that. But you'd have to be like crazy spoiled, not right. I
Yeah.
mean, this was an 8 seed. Like, what are we doing here? Like this. I thought this season was over in Game 4 against Chicago in the play. Fourth quarter Chicago the play. And when was that? April 16th.
April, I think it was April 14th because I was at the
Right.
Miami spring game that night, and that's when that was. Yeah.
Okay, April 14th. So today is what? June 2nd.
Yeah.
They've literally had 6 weeks of bonus basketball. Like the idea that this would be a disappointment. This very well, I said before this series, it's possible that I thought it'd be a long series, but I said it's possible that Denver could just get on their throat and finish them quickly, because they're that kind of team. They're a lot better than even the 53 wins, I think. And if you look at what happened this season, everybody in the West, it's like everybody was waiting for some other team that had an injury to a star to pop up and dethrone the Nuggets as the 1 seed. So it was either Memphis dealing with the Morant stuff, right? Or it was the Clippers dealing with Kawhi and then later PG, okay? The Lakers dealing with the injuries they had with LeBron and AD and other things. And then before they made the trade. Phoenix, obviously. Well, okay, at some point they're just going to turn it on because they got
Yep.
paid for that.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was waiting for somebody else, I think, in the national media because they don't find the Denver story interesting. I think they were looking for somebody else, one of those teams, was a more marquee guy than Jokic in terms of profile, to overtake them, and it just never happened. And because it wasn't really happening, Denver got up 7 games on the rest of the conference at one point, kind of shut it down. They let Memphis get back in it later. They would have been a 60-win team. Okay, I think if they had been pushed the entire season at the top of the conference. So, Alex, the way I look at it, like this is a series the Nuggets should win. They have home court. So for Heat fans to go from, we can't believe this is happening, this is incredible what they've done, all these great moments they've given us the last 6 weeks, to, they suck because they lost the Nuggets in 5 games. I mean, that would be a different level of spoiled, I
It would
think.
be.
So,
Yeah.
And look, I don't think anybody looks back at the bubble. I mean, the Heat lost the Lakers in 6 games. They didn't have Dragic and Bam, obviously, for a good portion of that. But I don't think anybody looks back at the bubble run as a disappointment. I don't think it's that. So no, I think the 2014 team that made the finals, the 2011 team that made the finals, those were kind of disappointments because Bron shit the bed in 2011, right? And 2014 just looked like they were completely spent and disinterested. That's different. This team is not disinterested. They just may not be as good as the team that they're playing right now.
Yeah.
It happens, we'll see, but that happens.
Want to squeeze one in before we let you run. We get this question from Adrian. Will we see Kevin Love this series? He says Zeller has not been effective for some time.
I think so. And I think some of this, again, is Zeller. The idea with Zeller is you get some vertical spacing. More so than you do with Love. So some of that pick and roll stuff you can run, and it gives you an easy outlet, and also kind of keep teams off the boards. But I think Cody, I think you've maxed out at this point on what you can really get from Cody. You're getting more bad stints than good stints. I would play Love just because he's been here before at this stage. Like that's where I would go with it. But look, we were calling for Highsmith for 2 weeks, and then finally now Spo's leaning on him. I mean, last night was crazy. Haywood Highsmith had 18 points. Jimmy Butler, Max Strus, and Caleb Martin combined for 16. Jimmy Butler, Max Strus, and Caleb Martin combined for fewer points than Haywood Highsmith in a finals game.
Wow.
In a finals game. And then Haywood came up to the podium with Bam, and I felt bad because nobody was asking Haywood any questions. So it was kind of like Anthony Chang's so nice, and he was kind of, this is for either of you, That's sort of
dealer's choice.
That's sort of how that works. I think you will see some rotation tweaks. But I think the biggest thing that needs to change offensively is Jimmy Butler needs to think of himself as a primary scorer in the series. The shots will fall off of that, but the shooters find energy from Jimmy's energy. So
yeah, no, really well said. Well, Ethan, I appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of the series, and hopefully they can even this thing up and steal a game on the road before coming back to South Florida. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Always love it when Ethan Skolnick can join us. And guys, I want to remind you, this episode of the Donno Drop is brought to you proudly by prizepicks.com, by betteredge.com, and by You Break Wheel Fix. You had that opportunity last night on Nikola Jokic, who, spoiler alert, he went over the 0.5 point total that he had. It was a special bonus on Prize Picks last night, which was basically a free space. I mean, you knew Jokic was going to score at least 1 point. He ended up scoring, what was it, 27 or 26 last night? 27 points for Jokic with a triple-double. And the crazy thing about it was 27-point triple-double. He only took 12 shots. I mean, he barely broke a sweat last night. That's how good Jokic was. But Prize Picks is so much fun. It's fully legal in the state of Florida. And if you sign up at prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks mobile app with our code 5, spell it out, FIVE, they're going to give you a 100% deposit match up to $100. And you simply select 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players, predict if they're going to go over or under their stat projections. And if you get all your predictions correct, you win real money. So guys, check it out today. If you haven't been playing Prize Picks by now, you don't know what you're missing. Prizepicks.com, Prize Picks mobile app with our code FIVE. It truly is daily fantasy made easy. And guys, BetterEdge.com. It's legal sports betting in the state of Florida because you're betting against other people. There's not a casino. There's not a house that you're betting against. It's a social platform. It's brilliant. It's fully legal. It's easy to use. BETTOR Edge.com. Use our code 5RSN, and they're going to give you a special $20 sign-up bonus just for signing up with our code 5RSN on BetterEdge.com. We'll talk about You Break Wheel Fix in a minute. This is probably a fair review on Cody Zeller. Zeller is so bad. He is bad right now. Spo needs to play Yurt or Love over Zeller. I thought Ethan hit the nail on the head. We're going to have to see Love in this series because it's a guy who's been here before. It's a guy who's been to the NBA Finals before. He's oozing with experience. You would think Love, who has been very important based on the matchups at certain points in this playoff to this point, that Kevin Love should have an opportunity to get some burn, some run. The whole DNP coach's decision last night, that can't be a thing for the rest of this postseason run. You know, and you're going to have probably game 3, but possibly game 2. You're going to have Tyler Herro minutes that you need to integrate into this team. It's definitely not going to be starters minute. Well, I mean, minutes are a relative thing to Spo because sometimes starters play less than bench guys, but he's definitely not going to be a starter when he comes back because he's missed 6 weeks worth of basketball at this point. But you're going to have to find a way to integrate Tyler Herro and hope that he can give the Heat some scoring punch and hope that the Heat can score in the paint a little bit more because that seems to be an area that, you know, Denver is exploitable in. And as far as being aggressive going to the basket, Jimmy knows he has to do that more from now on. Wasn't enough yesterday. For too much of that game, Jimmy was looking like he was in distributor mode, regular season mode, not playoff mode, certainly not finals Jimmy. You know how many times Jimmy Butler went to the free throw line last night? Same as me. 0.0 trips to the charity stripe for Jimmy last night. That's obviously not sustainable. And the Heat as a team, they shot 2 free throws, which is unfathomable, right? Haywood Highsmith was the only Heat player that got to the line. He knocked them both down. So the Heat were 100% from the free throw line, but 0 free throw attempts for Jimmy, 0 for Bam somehow. And Bam played really well last night, by the way. So I give Bam his kudos. 26 points, 13 rebounds. Adebayo was Miami's best player on the floor last night, but 0 free throw attempts. Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, 0 free throw attempts. It's kind of insane the way that played out. And, you know, the Murray and Jokic, I'll call them Murrich. The Murrich tag team just had their way with Miami last night. But I like what Miles had to say here. Not worried yet. You know, the Heat are kind of playing with house money. I still have the guts and I still want to win a championship, but I don't want to take anything away from the run that they've made to this point. And man, I hope they can steal game 2 on the road on Saturday night, or on Sunday night, actually, is the next time that they play. I hope that they can steal that game 2 on the road. Otherwise, we will, as a city and as a fan base, we're going to have to rely on the Florida Panthers, who, you know, they're underdogs against Vegas, but Panthers do have a better opportunity on paper anyway, because they've got the hottest goaltender in the NHL and the most clutch player in the NHL this year in Matthew Tkachuk. And Sergei Bobrovsky, of course, listen, I'm very hot goaltender. Sergei, I stand in net and I stop a lot of shots. That is the way Bob does it in net. So he's been just a man on a mission during this playoff run as Bobrovsky and the Panthers are opening up there. I mean, it seems weird to have to wait another day. Like the NBA Finals opened last night. I got to wait another day for the Stanley Cup Finals to open, but that's going to be tomorrow night. Florida Panthers on the road in Las Vegas to take on the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Panthers may have to carry us if the Heat cannot get back in this series. I know it's just one game, and I know every game is like an individual series in itself, but man, those matchups with Jokic especially and with Murray looked really, really tough and played out really, really tough last night. If you guys have a tough situation with your wheels, you got some curb rash, your wheels are cracked or damaged, we want to welcome back our friends and sponsor at U-Brake Wheel Fix, the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever park your car too close to the sidewalk curb? I know I have. U-Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, curb rash. Are your wheels faded or peeling? You don't need to replace them, as U-Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new, offering complete refinish options through powder coating, matching, and polishing. U-Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, U-Brake Wheel Fix offers so many car customizing options. They can trick your wheels out. Dolphins colors, Heat colors, Vice colors, Inter Miami pink and black, orange and green for the U, whatever you want. And they can get you new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. U-Brake Wheel Fix is located just south of Aventura. You can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at ubrakewheelfix.com. They're really active on all social media platforms at U-Brake Wheel Fix. So shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. U-Brake Wheel Fix. All right, my friends. I'll leave you with this from our guy, Rodney. Jimmy has to know the Heat needs him to be better if they have any chance to be competitive in this series. They need Jimmy to be Superman. Like, they don't need Jimmy to be better. They need Jimmy to somehow be better than Nikola Jokic for 4 out of the next 6 games. Like, that's honestly what they need. We will talk to you again next time on another episode of the Donno Drop here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. See ya.